Hey, welcome to Green Bionomy. The question for this video is, what are the types of hydroponic grow lights? So my situation right now is that I'm in an apartment. I do have a balcony, but I do not have a south-facing balcony. It's north-facing. So I don't have enough direct sunlight to grow certain plants. And right now, the plant I want to grow is tomato. And tomato needs around 6, 7, 8 hours of direct sunlight every day. So what do? Well, I need to use grow lights, so artificial lights to be able to grow the plant inside when I can't rely on the sun. Now, I don't know anything about grow lights. I'm just starting out in this. So I went online and I tried to break down what are the main types of lights that people use in hydroponics and what are their advantages and their disadvantages, as well as really broadly what is the difference between them and how they work. I didn't go too deep in how they work. I just wanted to see, okay, what is out there, what is the plus, the minus of each of them, so that I can choose. And this video is sharing what I found. So let's get started. Okay, the types of hydroponics grow lights. There are three types of light that are commonly used in the hydroponics sector. Let's review them. The first types we're going to review are the LED lights, so the light emitting diodes. It's kind of like the most recent type of lights that came in the industry because it's a relatively new technology. So let's review the pros and cons of this type of light. Light emitting diodes are LED lights. Let's see what are the pros first. So a long life, LED lights can last for up to 50,000 to 80,000 hours. They also do not produce much heat when they are being used, which can be useful because that means you can place them closer to your plants. They're also energy efficient, so LED lights are known for that. This is a technology that can save a lot of energy, so up to 60% from times, and both the energy efficiency as well as the low heat can end up with cost savings on the long term. And the heat is because, well, if you have a big grow room with a lot of lights that produce heat, you will need to also invest in some cooling infrastructure like AC units or fans. But if you have low heat lighting system, then that is a plus for you. Then it also can provide a full spectrum of light. That means it can be used during the whole life cycle of a plant, which means you won't have to use specialized lights, for example, at the beginning of the life cycle of the plants when you need more like blue light and then change to red light. You can use the same light for the entire life cycle. That's a big advantage in terms of operation, and also in cost. And this is mainly because you can combine different diode colors. So that's also one of the main advantage of LED lights, is that each diode emit a color, so you can even customize the amount of red light you want, or green light if you want, or red light if you want, and that makes them very flexible and versatile. So in terms of the cons, the first is that it's still relatively like newcomer in the hydroponic industry, at least from what I saw. Therefore, there is no clear standards like for the other type of lights that have been used for longer time. So it can be harder to find references or to be sure of the quality or sources of your produce or products. So that's one of the main disadvantages. So the lack of standard in the LED lights, as well as the low power. So you can get very high power, so in terms of how much light it emits with LED lights, but it will be more expensive, and it's relatively a low power in comparison with other standard lamps like the one we will see towards the end, the high intensity discharge lamps that have a very high light luminosity. And finally, it is the most priciest option. So LEDs, among the three types we're going to see, it's the most expensive, at least at the beginning. But if you consider the long term, with the energy efficiency that you gain, you will save cost on electricity. But at the beginning, it's the most pricey option. Now let's move on to the second type. Second big type of hydroponic lights that I found are the fluorescent lamps. So here I'm talking about compact fluorescent lamp because that's what I found at the beginning, and I thought that was the entire category, but actually compact fluorescent lamp are parts of fluorescent lamps. It's just that it's a fluorescent lamp that has been compacted so you can have more luminosity for a smaller bulb. But the fluorescent lamp, it's also another category. So the first was LED, now we're talking about fluorescent. So compact fluorescent lamps, the advantages first. So the first is the compatibility. So these bulbs usually fit in the regular light sockets that you have at home, so you don't have to install weird things that well, since I'm also just starting out, that's why the point of this video is, for example, I wouldn't know how to install these really big hydroponic lights I can see in the pictures. This can be very convenient for me because I already have the light sockets that I want, or even like a regular desk lamp, and I can get a compact fluorescent lamp, and then I can just put it in the light socket, so like E27 of my desk lamp, and then use it for my plants. Yeah, so like it's just an easy way to start. It's low cost, and also it doesn't consume a lot of energy, so you can have these electricity savings if you're doing a bit larger scale, and it doesn't emit a lot of heat, which makes it compatible with certain type of plants, and that allows you to put it closer to the plant because it won't burn them. So usually they're good for seedlings, so they're mainly used, mainly, a lot of time from what I saw, they're used for seedlings, and the low heat is also part of why you can use them for seedlings and for quick growing vegetables that do not like to have a lot of heat, for example spinach, lettuce, or herbs. Now let's review the disadvantages of these fluorescent lamps. The first is that they don't emit that much power. So if you need to light up an entire room and have enough light for the plant for its entire growth stages or life cycle, that may not be the best because they're not usually that powerful. So that makes them not good for plants that flower and that produce fruits, for example tomato plants, because these plants usually need a very high amount of light for the flowering and the fruiting. That means that these fluorescent lamp, for example, also when I say they're good for the seedlings, that also means that they're more adequate for the beginnings of the life cycle of plants, or at least the greening, the vegetative periods. So that's just one part of growth stages, but flowering and fruiting plants like tomatoes also have the later parts of their life cycle where they have the flowers and the fruits and needs a different type of light. So the compact fluorescent lamp will mainly be used if you're growing leafy vegetables and also for your seedlings. Now let's see the last category, which is one of the standards also in hydroponic that is also can be used for the entire life cycle of the plants. So the last category are the HID, or high intensity discharge type of light. So these have been around for a longer time. They're more of a standard in hydroponics, and if you look at pictures of grow rooms where, for example, they grow in warehouses or in factories, usually for bigger plants that require a lot of light. So these are more like the powerful one. For example, to grow cannabis and this type of plants or forage cereals, mainly people will use these high intensity discharge. So let's review them. So the advantages is that they're powerful and they have a high light output. So the light intensity you can get from them is very high, very interesting. So again, that will be for plants that like to have this light intensity. And they also can be used for the entire life cycle of the plants, the growth stages, because they have enough power, and they can provide a wide range of light spectrum that will match what your plant needs as it's growing. But usually people don't use only one high intensity discharge light during their production process, because there are two types of high intensity discharge. The first is metal halide and the second is high pressure sodium. And the reason why people use them in combination instead of only one of the types is, the first reason is because of the life cycle. So these lights usually have short life cycle. For example, metal halide is around 1 to 2 years, while while high pressure sodium is around 5 years. And because it's relatively short, people make a rotation where they will use the type that is more specialized for one part of the growth cycle, and then they will switch for the other type that is more specialized for another part of the growth cycle. So for example, metal halide is mainly focused on blue lights, which is for the vegetative stage, and high pressure sodium is mainly focused on red light, which is more for flowering and fruiting. So these lights are primarily used and good for long day plants. So what I mean by that is plants that in their natural environment outdoor, they would like to have very long days with a lot of direct sunlight, like 10, 11, 12 hours, like blasting on them, and high light intensity plant, of course. And for example, it's like forage plants, cereals, and citrus. Now, the disadvantage here is that they have a short life, as I said before, which increases your turnover, so you might need to purchase the lamp more often. And they're also inefficient. They use a lot of energy, so your electricity bill might skyrocket with the use of these lights. And they have a high heat. The heat in terms of placing it close or far to your plant, it doesn't really matter because they're so powerful. You can place them really far from the plant and still have enough light to grow the plant. But the problem is that it will heat up the room, and then you will need to invest into cooling infrastructure like AC units or fans. So that summarizes the high intensity discharge, and it's the end for this video. So we've seen the LED lights, the fluorescent lamps, as well as the high intensity discharge. So LED is more the newcomer, the kind of like cool new technology that can get you like the spectrum you want, because you can play around with the diode colors, but it's a bit of the most pricey option at the beginning, but that can save a lot of energy. The fluorescent lamp, it's more like the soft, low power, cheap light that you can get. Mainly it's very good if you're a beginner, and then you can grow seedlings and leafy greens with that. And then the high intensity discharge, I think it goes more into the expert category with like hardcore power and light when you have these like crazy grow rooms growing, I don't know, like lemon trees or whatever you want to grow that needs a lot of light. So these are the main three categories I've seen when I was doing the research. So it's just the basics, just the foundation, so you know what's out there and can make a choice. My next video on the lights will be basically on how to evaluate the light and to know what you need, or if the light you get is good enough for your plant. So basically how to know if your light is good or is bad for your plant. I hope this one was useful for you, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.